Hello, and welcome to the Design Versus podcast, a show where a designer puts forward his topic of choice and gets his guests to debate it for half an hour or so, and nobody wins. For this first and hopefully not cancelled episode, this topic is about creativity. Is design and creativity the same thing? And what actually makes someone creative? Also, do designers really colour in for a living? I'm your host, Bilal Padia, and joining me for this episode, she's our marketing coordinator with a huge obsession with cats. It's Molly Johnston.
Hello.
How's it going, Molly? You all right?
It's all right. It's
Everything
better now
well?
that I have a coffee. But
Got a coffee?
Yeah.
I got my cola at about 11 a.m. in the morning. On a scale of 1 to 10, Molly, how creative do you consider yourself to be?
that's a hard one because on my good days, I'd definitely say I'm a solid 8.5. But I don't like to say I'm creative because I feel like it puts more pressure on you. I feel like once you say that you're creative, that as soon as it's like an event or you need to write some copy for an email, everyone looks at you. And if you fail and you don't, create something that blows people's minds, then you feel a little bit like, oh, okay, I'm not as creative as I thought I was. Today, I'm feeling a solid 6.
You're feeling a solid 6 today, so
Yeah.
it goes by a daily thing, does it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that for me is probably about right. I'd say even for me, 7, 8 sometimes. If it's on a bad day, could be well between the 1s and 2s,
Do you not feel that the number 7 is just a horrible number? If you rate something a 7, it just feels so like it's just the worst number.
I don't know, maybe 7's a lucky number though.
It is, but when say like you have a meeting, like how we rate our L10s, we rate our meetings.
Yeah.
If someone rates it a 7, I just feel like this pain inside my soul.
We get it mixed up with the scale because it's like on a scale of 1 to 10, how stressed out are you in our L10, and then it's on a scale of 1 to 10, how good do you feel at the same time? And we're like, oh yeah, I'm a 10 on the stress and I'm a 10 on the other thing. Oh, so you're stressed out.
Nobody wants to be stressed.
Especially when you're a creative.
Exactly.
I think that's the thing. Like, you've got a creative background. Obviously, me being a designer, we've got a creative background. But the assumption here is that, creativity is our thing.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's
It's just a small part of it, I guess. A lot of our job, I used to write a lot more than I do now, obviously. But writing and designing are both skills, but they are like progressed by having creativity. I think that the problem is when you put, like I said, too much pressure on being creative, you're not creative anymore.
no.
Especially if there's a tough deadline or there's something that you really need to get done, or it's something that's been done 1,000 times before, and you have this tiny little scope to do something different. If you put that much pressure on yourself, I don't feel like it's a good environment to be very creative.
No, absolutely not. And that's where we end up getting the mental blocks, just whether you're a writer, whether you're a designer, even an artist, that creativity, it's fueled by the ideas and thoughts that we've got, but we as the specialist in that field, we're the ones executing it is what we're doing. So how do we define creativity then? What is creativity? How can one be creative?
I think
is the question.
I think that everyone's born creative, or at least with creativity in mind. But as you grow up, I think it's like pushed out of us a little because we have to think in a one-track way. We have to decide our future. We have to, go to school and do things a certain way that you forget that creativity and that mindset of being a child and being all imaginative. I think that it's hard to continue to be creative when you're in a job and you do the same thing day in and day out. And for me, that's the hardest thing, is being creative when I do the same things all the time. What can I do differently? What is there out there that I can take inspiration from? And so I guess it's very fundamentals. For me, it's it's emotion.
Yeah.
Creativity is an emotion.
It's like a trend, almost a way of life, because look at Pablo Picasso, one of the great quotes that he said that I'm not going to quote it exactly because I don't remember things that well, but he said something along the lines of that it didn't take him as much time to learn to become an artist, but it took him forever to learn how to draw as a child again.
Yeah.
And that for me is obviously the key thing there, that me myself being a designer, that my creativity has been with me throughout all my life, and keeping in touch with that inner creative and keep constantly drawing, keep constantly making things. I can't sit still without sort of wanting to jump onto a sketchbook or something that keeps me and my hands moving and working. As a designer, that's an essential part of my life on a regular basis, whereas for someone else who's been training to become a doctor or a lawyer or something, creativity is still with them. They're just not conscious of that, and they tend to sort of forget that their inner imagination from their childhood. Yeah. Look at Lego. Lego is one of the biggest things that inspires us to continue to be creative and think creatively. One of the key things about creativity, it's solving problems that as a designer, we constantly solve problems. And even as a writer, you've got a problem to solve. You've got to meet these personas and try and get the language, the tone in the right level so that people can associate with it and understand it. That to me is what creativity gets manipulated into towards is what we as these specialists are doing. It's strange because Albert Einstein said something similar, where creativity is intelligence having fun. So that element of creativity is, whether it is from our childhood to up until this point, there's still elements of it where you might even be sat like you and I are now having a conversation and come up with some random thoughts and ideas that come into our heads. That's still creativity, in my opinion.
There's scope for creativity in every job and every industry and every career path, I find. What we might not necessarily think is creative, like the strategists, for example, the account managers who look after the clients and they are responsible for the strategy and client comms and things like that. We are the creatives. Yeah. We are, we were called the creatives for so long, but what we've neglected, I think, is the fact that the strategists are creative in their own right. They're creating ideas and campaigns out of just keywords, and they are responsible for creating 3-month campaigns, and that's that's creative in its own right. And not only that, but then taking the results and the data and putting it in a visual way of which can be ingested by us who don't really interact with that side. Yeah. The client, they're super busy, and even then to put it into something that we might win an award with, which is what we've done as well. Yeah. So I think where we might not see creativity, that's their bread and butter, creating campaigns. We're just a small part of that, but we're the deliverable, aren't we? So
yeah, exactly.
When I used to write, we needed to take something that was maybe quite niche or a difficult, technical sort of subject, and then make it interesting and engaging and something that the persona would actually want to read. And then I might write a huge, massive 12-pager ebook in docs, in a G-doc, and then I hand that over to you, Bilal, and I can't imagine how you would feel needing to see all this and being like, Shizen, yeah. I have to make this into a beautiful ebook that is not only going to represent the brand well and use all the colours, but it's actually going to be fun for you to do as well.
Yeah. Going back to what you said just a second ago regarding the strategists getting involved with the creative process too, though, we would, and we still do at times, we get in a room and it won't just be creative, it'll be SEO, it'll be social, and we'd all be in a room brainstorming for campaigns. It's something we did a lot of. So when you're putting all these different individuals together in a room, you're putting a huge sort of think tank together to come up with a solution, because we as individuals every day are constantly solving problems and issues that we might be having. And a problem shared is a problem halved, and that's where the creativity is.
It thrives off collaboration.
Yeah.
there's so many different people and ideas and backgrounds that exist in that one room that it'd be hard not to find something to work on, or something to improve, or something to execute.
Yeah, someone comes up with an idea not just from researching. It comes from conversation.
Yeah.
It comes from everywhere. That's creativity is almost like oxygen that you imagine the cavemen back in the day who came up with the idea of the wheel of fire, the discovery side of it. It's creativity's in there. It's historic. It's timeless. It's constantly working. Even right now, creativity is being sparked through just what we can see next.
The environment that we're in is, it's creative.
Yeah.
Us doing a podcast is creative. I think that it's wrong or a common misconception that to be creative is to create something new. I think that's wrong. There's so many other things you can take inspiration from. And I think what is truly creative is taking something that has been done so many times before and putting your own spin on it, which I imagine doing a lovely 6-page ebook is what you're most familiar with.
Yeah.
How do you feel when, maybe someone hasn't given you much direction, and where do you go from there? You need to create something beautiful that's branded. How do you approach that? I know that you've done some videos in the past. Maybe we can put a little clip or something.
We'll put a link to the Better Briefs video that I made.
We'll
link
put
in
a
the description below.
Snippet. We'll put a little snippet in here.
No, it's a good question, and as I say, when you've got little or nothing to go off, you're digging.
Do you feel like that hinders your creativity almost, because the scope is so wide? It's like, where do you even begin? You've got so many decisions you could make. But if someone said this or that, or what about that, it helps you get the cogs turning. The
biggest phrase that comes out of the back of that is what I said earlier was, you're the creative one. You come up with it. You figure it out. Oh, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, no worries. I'll just pull it out of thin air. It doesn't work that way. Conversations, talking to people, getting as much insightful information as you can. Reading the content is one thing, but someone who explains it to you and shares their thoughts and opinions on the subject too helps to elevate the opportunity for design too. Which, by the way, again, the design execution is that's the process that I'll be going through. That I'm reading through the content and picking out the key information and stats. But the creativity is nothing without. So design is nothing without creativity.
Yeah.
If there's ever a quote from this, creativity is key for design.
Yeah.
That for me, without the correct plan that. Nobody ever gives you an ebook and says, hey, we want you to just put an ebook together, go for it. You just put some pictures and things in there, make it pop.
I'm pretty sure I've done that before. I'm pretty sure I've given you a D22, some content, and I've gone, just make it look good, Bilal.
Yeah, that's when I want to throw my Mac out. Well, throw the Mac out of the window. I won't do such thing. But the designers and anyone in the creative department, and again, how would you handle that? Because nobody just says to you, we need to write about a topic for computers or IT, which, by the way, is one of the hardest topics for me to sort of design for, because
I bet SAS is so hard to. It's concepts. How do you design a concept? That's why we've been doing a lot of animation, I guess, for things like SaaS companies, because it's easier to get across what they want to sort of achieve.
Exactly.
And the process is
it's
designing that. Where do we even begin?
Well, we use the word jargon, and mundane isn't obviously a light sort of word to use when we're talking about a subject in itself, but jargon is the topic of what
you're making complex ideas and processes into something that can be easily consumed by someone just watching a 30-second animation, and
we're always
art.
We're always putting our minds into the reader, into the person looking at whatever deliverables we're creating, and that's where personally, me myself, when I go on Wikipedia for something, I do that thing where you go on the simple English translation, which makes it all easy for me to understand. Is how I go about designing in itself.
If you can make something if you can make a complex topic or idea easier to consume, why not?
Right?
Why not? We do that with writing all the time.
Yeah.
We get given, some clients might give it, well, that's the point, we're the experts. If a client gives us massive four-page writing, the scrolls of a madman, like the CEO's just sat there and he this is sort of implied knowledge. He might think everyone knows the same thing as he does.
Yeah.
We have to take that and turn it into a 1,000-word blog that, the persona who might not know that much can read. And you have to, in your design processes and your art, you have to, something that is so hard, like AI. How do you go about designing artificial intelligence?
Yeah, and that's a challenge. Now that's where design writers, artists, musicians, all these people in the creative industry are coming in. There's a list that I wanted to run through actually that I found. When I click on this website, it's 20 signs you're a creative person.
Right. I'm probably going to tick 3 of those things because, I'm not feeling very creative today, but do you want to run through them?
But we are creatives, right?
We are, by name.
We promise we are creatives, but this is not to say that
if you don't, it's not to say that if you don't tick this off that you're not a creative. It's just, is this a reputable site? This is like a BuzzFeed quiz.
It's blogs. I'm not the biggest blog guy.
Right, but okay. It's a lovely little listicle. That's all you need to know. Right.
The first thing on the list says you have an authority problem.
Do I have a problem with authority?
Yeah.
Probably some deep-rooted childhood that we can explore on a different podcast, but...
I mean, what it is, they've written you have an authority problem, but there's a bit of text to back it up. So it says creative types don't always get along well with management because they would rather march to the beat of their own drum. Goodness me.
I'll let Ricky answer that one.
I mean, you say that, but then a footballer might have an authority problem, I
don't think I have an authority problem. I think I have like when you're creative and you want to produce something, but you've got like creative frustration.
Yeah, exactly.
I get frustrated, and maybe that is seen as like having a problem, but it's more like that's my own challenge that I need to like fight through.
Where you've got some vision or idea for what you want, but then someone else comes in and says no.
Yeah, a good example of that is maybe clients when I've taken a blog in a different way.
Yeah.
That it might be a bit more conversational, or it might be set out in a different way. It might be really image heavy, and they've gone, no, we don't like this, and I'm like, but me as an expert in that industry, I'm telling you that it's going to work just fine, and it's going to be great, but you can't argue with the client.
No.
You've got to say to them, yes, I understand. Maybe next time.
I mean, ultimately, we get paid to do it. So.
Yeah, they're paying, and it is what it is.
I guess that's coming away from this list for a second, but that's the hindrance of creativity that
they have a vision as well.
They have an idea that we've got to work towards, and exactly. But again, saying that the client is creative, the clients have got a creative mind about what they've got envisioned.
Definitely.
We have to then execute
That's
that.
why they worked with the marketing agency in the first place.
Yeah.
Because they have all these creative visions, or maybe they have the creativity, but they don't have the means to execute it.
Exactly.
And we do.
But yeah, looking at these items, I'll go through a few of them.
Let's go through a few more, yeah.
So you have a hard time relating with people, but that could be... I
disagree, because I'm somebody who needs to relate to the persona in my writing, or when I'm marketing for D22, I've got to relate to who's going to be looking at it. I'm the marketer looking at this content, and so are they. So I feel like I'm so I've got so much empathy within me that it's like that's a hindrance in itself.
I have empathy, but I don't like people. So that's an awkward thing. So
it's been nice having you on the podcast.
I'm still doing this right now. One of them says you like to solve problems.
I love a good problem solve. Actually, I think if I'm being honest, I love bringing problems more than I love solving them. But I always say to everyone, whoever brings me like a challenge, I'm like, bring me a solution, not a problem, because it becomes my problem then. And I love solving them, and I love getting people's ideas and being collaborative on a problem. Solving them by yourself is no fun.
Yeah, I guess so. A problem shared is a problem halved, though.
Exactly, as what we said before.
Yeah. You are your own worst critic.
I am, 100%, and I know you are as well. This podcast, I just want to tell you, has been a long time in the making, because Bilal is his own worst critic. He's a perfectionist.
I hate myself. That's why I don't do things.
He is insanely talented, but he won't ever admit that. But it's been a long time coming, and I'm so glad it's happening now.
I mean, the guy here wrote, to be fair, coincidentally, this is why I refuse to read my own old blogs and articles. So
I don't refuse to read mine. I think my old stuff is probably better.
I'll watch my video clip of this podcast for a few seconds and hate my own voice and think, I'm tuning out.
Bilal, you are so talented. This isn't praise Bilal podcast, but you are very talented, and I know you're your own worst critic. And many a time when we have sat there, and I've had a piece of content that I've written, you've had a brief that's a bit lackluster, and we've needed to come together to create something beautiful. And how many times have we done something that's been great? I can't mention any client names, but we had the education, real estate, the fancy beds.
The fancy beds.
The fancy bed.
Yeah.
I don't think Adrian minds it, but yeah.
The fancy beds.
Revival Beds brochure, like it all looks.
Yeah.
It looks great when we come together.
Well, thank you. Like I always say, as a creative as well, I am my own worst enemy in that instance, and I think we all are, though. Yeah. And I guess that's why this is on the list, I'm gonna flick through the rest of these because I don't want to delve too long in them. But you ask yourselves a lot of questions. You carry a notebook everywhere you go. I don't carry a notebook everywhere I go, but I do have a sketchbook. There you go. She's got Pikachu with her.
Oh, it's my lovely moleskin. I think
it's a Pokemon one.
It is. It's Pokemon moleskin. I think that's like. That's a sign of a creative when you've got a nice little moleskin in your backpack.
You've got to be gimmicky. You've got to be weird in some way. I mean...
Do you think?
I think so. Our other designer's weird.
I think that's just us.
Dave's weird, isn't
he? Dave's a...
He won't mind me saying that.
Dave's Dave.
Yeah.
I wonder if we can have, Dave popping up or something.
Just a picture of Dave.
Yeah, just a picture of Dave. This is Dave.
Yep, that's Dave. Look at him. You find beauty in the ordinary.
I'd like to think that artistically and aesthetically, but I mean, if it looks bad, I'm probably gonna say it looks bad. I'm not, like the sandwich when you're like, I like this part. This could do with a little bit more of that, or and that's great as well. The compliment sandwich or whatever.
I always see I've been told I was beige with my diet. I've got a beige diet.
A beige diet. Nobody wants to be told they've got a beige diet.
No, but then I actually think about it. I do love seeing a good picture of a burger with the sauce and everything in there, but I just have the burger with no salad, no sauce. So that is beige.
Beige diet. Nobody.
Beige
that's
diet.
The worst insult I've ever heard. It's like a beige diet.
I mean, everyone's got a bit of beige in them, just like they've got a bit of creativity in them.
Bit of beige.
So, you are numb to rejection.
No, rejection I've feared instinctively. I think everyone fears. You've sent a beautiful ebook to a client and they don't like it below. Are you worried about that? Are you not gonna? Is that not gonna hurt you?
I used to care. I used to, but it's not that I don't care that they don't like it. It's creativity is an opportunity to improve as well. So with
old Bilal can't answer the phone right now because new improved Bilal, who doesn't care about rejection, is here.
I will say this. I got Jack Kendall.
Right.
Right. He's our head strategist. Right.
He HubSpot consultant manager.
Specifically. He has this joke with me where I design something and he really likes it. He'll look at it and say, That's 2019 Bilal. That's 2019.
What's wrong? Why? What's the 2019 significance?
That was my year.
Was it?
That was
I started that year.
That was my prime. You started in that year.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's some influence there.
Every
every time I design something that's not quite, it's like this is post-COVID Bilal. This is not.
I think your stuff's only improved. I'm going to be honest. I think it's not that 2019 Bilal is, we can't hold him up to this pedestal. I just think we had maybe more exciting things to design.
Creativity doesn't die.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
It just has a hibernation period.
That's why I despise the joke 2019 Bilal. But
there's nothing, I've seen you grow as a designer. I've only been here 2.5 years only, but I've seen, the 2019 stuff we did. It's night and day to what we do now.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's any comparison. I think it's just growth.
Creativity is progress.
There it is.
I've been here 4 years. I joined this company, with little experience, and
now look at us.
Yeah, thriving. Absolutely thriving.
How many are us now? 45?
Too many.
Too many.
Too many
no.
of us.
Growth is good. It's more opportunities. It's, more clients coming in wanting bigger and better things. It's Jonathan offering a podcast service. It's you doing animation and helping out with that. It's
collaboration. Creativity is collaboration as well. Quick fire. Let's do it. You understand the power of atmosphere, yes or no?
Yes. Look at this atmosphere we're in right now. We're in an old mill surrounded by locomotive parts. I'm feeling it. I feel like I could be Ernest Hemingway right now, just sat there, I'm in my creative zone.
You think most people have poor taste?
I don't think people have poor taste. I think I probably have poor taste.
I wouldn't be a creative rather, if I didn't think people had poor taste.
I think I can admit to myself that I have poor taste, but I can definitely recognise when somebody else is
We're not talking about clients, right?
No.
That would be...
Not about clients.
That would be bad.
We love you.
Yeah.
I just mean that, if someone wants something done a certain way that's maybe a bit outdated or garish or just a little bit been done before.
Are you a people watcher? You're a people watcher.
Do you not love a bit of voyeurism? Just sitting somewhere in a coffee... When I say it out loud, it sounds weird, but Jonathan's laughing behind the camera. Just going and sitting in a coffee shop and watching other people. You can, and do you ever play that game where you make up a narrative between two people? They're they're definitely divorced, and they've just been to couples therapy, and now they're having to deal with each other over a cup of coffee, and they're not looking at each other. Do you ever create those stories?
Not that, but...
It's very in-depth. I want to know about... I'm telling you about the childhood. I'm telling you about the day they got married.
Yeah. I get told that I stare a lot, which is just me when, I don't know if that's just a really Indian thing that we just sort of stare.
Do you stare? I don't think I've noticed it that much.
Good, because I don't stare a lot. That'd be creepy. Anyway.
It would.
But I do observe people in a passive way that you can sort of...
You'd like to take it in.
Yeah, exactly. Are you in it for the money?
Am I in it for the money? No creative can say that. Whether you are think of people who are just starting out as artists. They're never in it for the money because they're in it for the creative outlet, And as creative roles go, if you versus academic roles, I know there's no difference really because they both have key parts of each other. But if you have a creative role versus academic role, you wouldn't be in a creative role if you were in it for the money.
No, absolutely not.
No, because it's just the nature of the job. You're in it because you love it and you're passionate about creating something that people enjoy.
Yeah, the motivation for me was the progress. For example, seeing where I was to where I am now, seeing something fruition, and how this company, for example, has come from where it was to... I joined this company when there was 12 people. Now there's, like you said, 49, 50 plus. So, this list is really difficult to go through without going into depth for each one. There's 7 questions left.
Right.
Hopefully we can say yes
Quick
and
fire.
no. Yeah. You experience emotions, highs and lows.
Yes.
You seek inspiration.
Yes, all the time. Like I said previously, it's so naive to think that creativity is creating something new when there's so many wonderful inspiration everywhere you go.
So yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. You have an interesting sense of humour?
Yeah, I'll let Jonathan answer that. Jonathan's nodding behind the camera.
That's a yes.
Okay.
Okay. Jonathan approves.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. You evolve like a boss.
Evolve like a Pokemon.
Like a
perhaps.
boss.
I don't think I evolve like a boss. I don't know. don't know what that means. Like girl boss energy.
I'll be honest. I don't evolve like a boss. I
No.
evolve. I
Like
devolve.
I'm constantly
opposite.
just like.
You become a machine in the end.
Yeah,
That's like,
yeah.
I just yes.
I evolve. What's something that hasn't really changed over the years? Like a cockroach. Because they haven't really changed. They're the same as they was like years ago. They're very resilient though, and I respect that for them with their little shells.
So you know, there's that one where you think people have poor taste. Maybe is that related?
But I think I have poor taste as a
Yeah.
cockroach myself.
You have I said this one? You hate stereotypes? Did I say that? I don't think.
I don't think there's anything
I'm
wrong with
lost on this list now.
stereotypes. Yeah, maybe this list. I think whoever's made this list has tried really hard to pinpoint who a creative is, but I don't think it's that cookie cutter. I think a creative is so wildly unique in itself.
Yeah.
How do you define that? Like, this is what we're trying to do, but I don't think you can really define it.
You almost think creativity is just as subjective as the actual person doing the creative work is. Design, writing, all that. I'm not going to carry on this list. There's only 3 left, but sorry, but this list did not quite do it for me.
It did not pass the vibe check.
I didn't feel like I was passing the creativity check either.
No, I feel like it was kind of putting a damper on it. Like, do you have a problem with authority? Maybe. But does that mean I'm not creative? I don't know.
Do you have to be within the creative industry to be a creative?
I think it helps. But like I said, you can be an academic and approach situations creatively, or solve problems creatively, like doctors creating new ways to do like heart surgery and stuff like that. That's pretty creative. Like how even stuff that we might not assume is creative, like artificial intelligence or like robot process automation, those words don't sound very creative, but the things that we've needed to do to achieve those,
the execution,
the execution is very creative. We wouldn't have thought about that 20 years ago.
You could, quoting my design lead here, but you teach a man to fish, feed his family for weeks or something like that. I can never remember what he says, Dave.
Give a man a fish, he'll feed his family for like what, a day, and then like teach him how to fish, he feeds it forever. I don't know. Jonathan, do you know the quote?
It's from the Bible.
Oh.
I'm not very religious.
I am.
But not that one.
Well, not that kind of. What I'm trying to say there is like I'm looking at you, person watching this video. You can also be a creative. You guys are looking like.
I'm looking at this camera. This is my camera.
Oh, well, I can't even see that camera. Anyway, I was saying that I'm looking at you because you can obviously be taught how to execute. Like, that's the whole point of it.
Well, if that's the case, give me one tip on how someone can foster that creativity, or rather, how you, maybe there's a takeaway from how you do it.
There's principles. So, hear me out.
Right, I'm listening.
The creativity, the passion, the drive of what you think is an idea.
Yeah.
Then you sort of stumble and stop and block yourself and say, well, actually, how do I execute that? The execution comes from understanding your principles. So for a designer, it could be the balance, the repetition, the hierarchy of whatever we're creating, whether it's a website or an ebook. And, you could say yourself from a writer's perspective what the principles are from writing, how to translate from creativity and making it into a tangible medium, something that people can actually get their hands on. Teaching people those principles and the execution. It's just like Harry Potter, where they're all magicians and they're all wizards. You're a wizard, Harry. But they're being taught how to manipulate
Some of them
that.
are like dirty half-blood muggles, though, and that's their own problem, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of people are muggles. But yeah, that's my take on how you would
Start at the very fundamentals, the basics.
the foundations,
Yeah.
and once you get that established, then it's the experience and trying to keep practicing that on
Once
a
you've
regular
mastered
basis.
that start bit, I guess you can only move from
Exactly,
there.
and that's what, for me, that's why I think anyone who's creative anyone who thinks they've got some creativeness inside them, be it small or little, be it small or large, it's a scale, but that scale is defined by the actual thing that they want to become.
Yeah.
That anyone could then become a designer or an artist or a musician or a writer. That there's no limitations with what
I think you've got to be passionate about it, and if you like it, if you're passionate about it, then I guess there's nothing really stopping you from working on it and progressing. And that's why I said originally that I think that creativity is an emotion and also a skill that you can develop.
Yeah.
You know, it's surrounding yourself with other creatives. In the office right now, we have a seating plan, and I reckon on your side, when you've got the devs and designers all together, I reckon that's a hub of just ideas being batted around and creativity. And same with all the content team being, plopped together. I think that, one of us shout an idea out and it's implemented, or someone else has an opposing idea that might just work. And it's putting the creatives together. I think that's when you really understand what it means to be a creative.
See, I would argue in some capacity that if we're all creatives deep down in our hearts, that even a mixture of different people at a desk is still just as creative as a bunch of creatives from the significant background.
Which might even open up for more creativity, actually, if somebody is coming at it at such a different
because you've got
angle,
different personas, you've got different
perspectives.
Like, if I'm at the desk with Christian from PPC, and with Tom Cross or Mary from Social or from content team, so mix those people up onto one desk, you've still got yourself a think tank there, like a bunch of different backgrounds.
It's so underrated. Having so many different perspectives in a business can only prove good things.
I was at a business before this place that, said that I hate, like the director said that I hate seeing people from the same department in one place, seeing a variety of different people. This is why we do sometimes do the planning hubs where we put different people together to come up with some solutions.
It does work because we have different ideas and different, like you said, backgrounds and perspectives coming together to create something. For me personally, I just thrive when I'm with other people who are
from the same background.
Yeah, either thinking the same things as me or can bring something that I might not have thought of in my own sort of department. And I know that's sometimes limiting, but I don't know. That's how I prefer to work.
Let me tell you something. Some of the creative logos that I've executed aren't my own ideas. They come from other people and say, "Oh, what if you did this? What if you just take my job and just do it yourself? How's that sound?"
That outside of that someone being able to step back and look at that though, that's valuable in itself. Like me wandering over and being like, "What about that, Bilal?" Or like, when someone does that to my work, I feel a little bit at the start. I'm kind of like, because I'm a creative, and I'm like, "Oh, why is someone coming over and pretending that what's going on?" But then I'm like, actually, that's a really good idea, and that might be the authoritative problem that we talked about.
I think so. In hindsight, that list actually might be all right. We'll never agree on that though. Yeah. It's a tough one because design in itself, creativity can't thrive without it. Can't thrive without it in content.
Yeah.
So creativity in itself is the key part of our daily goings, and I think the only misconception here is that we don't want people to think that you have to be that creative background.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to be an artist to be creative.
I think
you can be whatever.
And I think coming into an agency like Digital 22, the environment is fostering creativity anyway. So
absolutely.
You might come in and be like, "Oh, I'm not creative." And I hear so many people who are like, "I'm not creative, I'm academic." Yeah. And then, sorry, I just hit the spoon. If someone comes in like, I'm not creative, but when they're in that environment and they are talking to other people who are actively always thinking of new ideas, it's infectious. and they're also going to pick up on that as well. And I think it's nice when you can have and work somewhere like that. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree.
I couldn't agree. He
Yeah.
couldn't agree, guys.
I couldn't agree more.
You heard it here first.
This is the Design versus podcast,
Yeah.
and this is how we go.
We
So,
don't agree.
Yeah. I wanted to end things with anything that you would like to debate, just off the bat. Has there anything been on your mind that you think, what do you think of that?
What do I
Hit me
think
with
of
your
that?
best thing to debate about.
I was gonna do is Jaffa cake a cake or a biscuit, because
Which it obviously isn't.
it's a biscuit.
It is?
It is a biscuit because we looked it up. Basically, it's something to do with the VAT. And Jonathan's nodding. To be a cake is classed as like an essential item or something, wasn't it? So it doesn't have VAT on it, but because it's a biscuit, it does have VAT on it, and it's in the biscuit aisle, is it? So a Jaffa cake is a biscuit, or it's classed as one. But I wasn't going to talk about that. I was going to talk about. I'm throwing you off course here. You look terrified. What do you think about sort of tools like Canva and tools like Canva? Do you think they help creativity, or do you think they hinder them because they already give you like templates? They spit templates at you, and you're like, oh, I could just drag and drop. Do you think that hinders or helps creativity for people who might not be like?
Oh, you've really gone there. Right, okay.
I went there.
I couldn't really care too much about Canva because
Do you think it's good? It's a good tool, or
it's a tool.
for maybe people who aren't designers and are just like in-house, or need to get a social post out?
Well, we've got designers in house for that reason.
Say you're someone who
is a debate that we always have in house sometimes.
But you're someone who is a marketing manager, and you don't have the luxury of having experts in every field like we do as an agency, and you needing to do emails, and you needing to do video, you need to do everything. You don't have the luxury that we have, and Canva is your only vice. Do you think you should continue to use Canva because it's easy and you can just quickly put templates together, or do you feel like it's a good opportunity to learn how the principles of design rather than just relying on a tool?
Because it's a tool, it's more about the principles of design there, and I think that's where we sort of do the leg up and try and help by providing pre-made templates ourselves from a design software other than Canva, because we've not got that limitation, and we can do whatever the hell we want, right? In Canva, you get set limitations, so that for me hinders whoever else is going to put an asset together in Canva. So when you look at it, I would say that it is good and it isn't good. It's good for when you have preset templates that the designer's offered, and then creates assets that the person
that is
can be
related
using.
to your brand, not just like the willy-nilly templates that it spits
Exactly,
you.
exactly. And then exercising I'll be honest, 9 times out of 10, most of the things that I create as assets come across quite well afterwards when social team or even yourself, when you put something together in Canva, there'll be the odd times where the alignment might be off, but me being a designer might just be saying that.
Yeah, you're going to pick
I'll
up
say
on
that because that's deep down, I have a designer OCD that's inside me and saying that, no, the font's too big, no, the kerning's too close, no, what are you doing? Are you mad? That's not how you...
But me as a marketer who's putting that together, and other marketers are going to see it, they probably won't see that.
Exactly. Yeah. So...
It's got its benefits.
There's benefits, there's pros and cons, but at the end of it, nobody wins.
Nobody wins.
And that is...
Except Canva, capitalists.
That is.
The capitalist wins.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For me, is there any other business or...
No, I think
else from me.
school's out.
That's cool. Then that concludes this episode on creativity. If you enjoyed this debate, stay tuned for more, and we'll see you later.